Good morning to all of you. Welcome to today's class. Please take your statistic book to page number 4. Your statistics book to page number 4. Yesterday we had stopped till the definition of economics, which was economics is the study of how people and society choose to employ the scarce resources that could have alternate uses in order to produce various commodities that satisfy their wants and to distribute them for consumption among the various persons and groups in society. This is still where we had stopped. Today, statistics in economics. Now, in the previous section, you were told about certain special studies that concern the basic problems which are facing a country. These studies required that we know more about these economic facts. Such economic facts are also known as economic data. You can underline that line. Economic facts are known as economic data. The purpose of collecting data about these economic problems is to understand and explain these problems in terms of the various causes behind them. In other words, we would try to analyze them. For example, when we analyze the hardships of poverty, we try to explain it in terms of the various factors such as unemployment, low productivity of people, backward technology, etc. But what purpose does the analysis of poverty serve unless we are able to find ways to mitigate it? Mitigate it means to remove it, solve it. We may therefore also try to find those measures that help solve an economic problem. In economics, such measures are known as policies. You can underline that again. Measures taken to solve an economic problems is known as policies. So, do you realize then that no analysis of an economic problem would be possible without the data on the various factors underlining an economic problem? And that in such a situation, no policies can be formalized to solve it. If yes, then you have to a large extent understood the basic relationship between economics and statistics. So basically, statistics is collecting data to solve a problem, and this data is normally collected in a numerical manner. Okay. So what is statistics? At this stage, you are probably ready to know more about statistics. You might very well want to know what the subject statistics is all about. Statistics deals with the collection, analysis, interpretation, and presentation of numerical data. So this is the process. First of all, we go and collect the data. After collecting the data, what do? We analyze the data. After we analyze the data, what do? We give it an interpretation of our understanding. This is what we are interpreting of the data which we have collected. So the third stage is interpretation. Then you present it in the form of a graph, of a diagram, in the form of a table, etc. That is presentation is the fourth process. So collection, analysis, interpretation, and presentation of numerical data. So this is what statistic deals with. It is a branch of mathematics and also used in disciplines such as accounting, economics, management, physics, finance, psychology, and sociology. So these are the various fields where statistics are being put to use. Here we are concerned with data from the field of economics. But when we are studying statistics here at this level, we are normally restricting ourselves to the field of economics. Most economic data are quantitative. Quantitative is something which can be counted, numerically counted. For example, a statement in economics like the production of rice in India has increased from 39.58 million tons in 1974-75 to 106.5 million tons in 2013 and 14. This is a quantitative data. We are expressing the production of rice through a numerical figure. From 39.58 it has risen to 106.5 million tons. Now, in addition to the quantitative data, economics also uses qualitative data. The chief characteristics of such information is that they describe the attributes of a single person or a group of persons that is important to record as accurately as possible, even though they cannot be measured. So that data which cannot be measured is normally qualitative in nature. Take for example, the gender that distinguishes a person as a man, woman, or boy and girl. It is often possible and useful to state the information about an attribute of a person in the terms of a degree. Like we would say a boy better than girl or a girl better than a boy, worse, sick, healthy, more healthy, unskilled, skilled, highly skilled, etc. These are attributes which form a qualitative representation, not a quantitative representation. These are attributes in which a person can have, and they may vary in various degrees: good, better, worse, bad. All these are all qualitative attributes. Such qualitative information or statistics is often used in economics and other social sciences and collected and stored systematically. Like quantitative information on prices, incomes, taxes paid, etc., whether for a single person or for a group of persons. You will study in the subsequent chapters that statistics involves collection of data. The next step is to present the data in a tabular, that is in the form of a table, diagrammatic and graphic forms. The data then are summarized by calculating the various numerical indices such as mean, variance, standard deviations, etc., that represent the broad characteristics of the collected set of information. Finally, the data are analyzed and interpreted. What statistics does? Statistics is an indispensable tool for an economist that helps him to understand an economic problem. What is the meaning of indispensable? Indispensable means that which cannot be dispensed with. or it is absolutely essential. That is the meaning of indispensable. Using its various methods, effort is made to find the causes behind it with the help of qualitative and quantitative facts of an economic problem. Once the causes of the problem are identified, it is easier to formulate certain policies to tackle it. But there is more to statistics. It enables an economist to present the economic facts in a precise and definite form that helps in proper comprehension of what is stated. It helps us to understand what is being stated. That's the meaning of comprehension. When economic facts are expressed in statistical terms, they become exact. Exact figures are more convincing than vague statements. What is the meaning of vague? Something which is not clear. For instance, saying that with precise figures, 310 people died in the recent earthquake in Kashmir is more factual, and thus it is a statistical data. Whereas saying hundreds of people died is not statistical data. When we give things in facts, like how many people died, we are giving a number. 310 people died in Kashmir. That makes it a statistical data, not something very vague. Many people died. How many are the many? We don't know. That does not make it statistical data. Statistics also helps in condensing the mass data into a few numerical measures, such as we can calculate their mean, their variance, etc., about which we will learn in the coming chapters. These numerical measures help to summarize the data. For example, it would be impossible for you to remember the incomes of all the people in a data if the number of the people is very large. Yet, one can remember easily a summary figure like the average income that is obtained statistically. So what he says is, when you have a huge amount of data collected in hundreds and thousands, is it possible to remember the data of all these now? No. But if we find it out by finding out their statistical, let's say mean, median, mode, then we can have a figure which it is easier to remember, that the mean of, let's say, income collected of a group of 500 people. Is it possible to remember the income of all the 500 people? No. But suppose we take out an average. How do you find the average? You add up all of them and divide it by the total number. You will get a figure. That figure will be representing an average income of that full group of people whose income we have collected. So that is, so he says statistics summarizes and presents a meaningful overall information about a mass of data. So from the huge amount of data collected, we can present this data in a meaningful way with the help of statistics. Quite often, statistics is used in finding relationships between different economic factors. An economist may be interested in finding out what happens to the demand for a commodity when its price increases or decreases. Or would the supply of a commodity be affected by the changes in its own price? Or would the consumption expenditure increase when the average income increases? Or what happens to the general price level when the government expenditure increases? Such questions can only be answered if any relationship exists between the various economic factors that have been stated above. Whether such a relationship exists or not can be easily verified by applying statistical methods to their data. In some cases, the economist might assume certain relationships between them and like to test whether the assumption he or she has made about the relationship is valid or not. So what he tries to say here is, economists might make certain relationships understood more easily. Like now in the next chapter, when we go back to microeconomics, we're going to study the law of demand. What does the law of demand tell us? That when the price of a commodity increases, the demand for that particular good is going to fall. And when the price of a good normally falls, the demand for that good will increase. So the economist can make an assumption to this law after studying the various data collected from the different people, whether they would buy more or whether they would buy less when the price of the good increases. And normally it is found that when the price of a good increases, the demand for that particular good would decrease. Now sometimes, in another instance, the economist might be interested in predicting the changes in one economic factor due to the changes in another factor. For example, he or she might be interested in knowing the impact of today's investment on the national income in future. Such an exercise cannot be undertaken without the knowledge of statistics. Now, sometimes formulation of plans and policies requires the knowledge of future trends. For example, an economic planner has to decide in 2017 how much the economy should produce by the year 2020. In other words, one must know what could be the expected level of consumption in 2020 in order to decide the production plan of the economy for 2020. In this situation, one might make a subjective judgment based on the guess about the consumption in the year 2020. Alternatively, one might use statistical tools to predict consumption in 2020. And that could be based on the data of consumption of the past years or of the recent years obtained by surveys. Thus, statistical methods help formulate appropriate economic policies that solve economic problems. Conclusion. Today, we increasingly use statistics to analyze serious economic problems such as rising prices, growing population, unemployment, poverty, etc., to find measures that can solve such problems. Further, it also helps to evaluate the impact of such policies in solving the economic problems. For example, it can be ascertained easily using statistical techniques whether the policy of family planning is effective in checking the problem of the over or ever growing population. In economic policies, statistics plays a vital role in decision making. For example, in the present time of rising global oil prices, it might be necessary to decide how much oil India should import in the year 2025. The decision to import would depend on the expected domestic production of oil and the likely demand for the oil in 2025. Without the use of statistics, it cannot be determined what the expected domestic production of oil and the likely demand for it would be. Thus, the decision to import oil cannot be made unless we know the actual requirement of oil. And this vital information that helps to make the decision to import oil can only be obtained statistically. Okay, now we come to the questions part. The first one, mark the following statements as true or false. First, statistics can only deal with quantitative data. Is it true or false? Statistics can only deal with quantitative.
False.
It is false because it can also use qualitative data as well. Statistics solves economic problems. True. Statistics is of no use to economics without data. True. Next question is, make a list of activities in a bus stand or a marketplace that how many of them are economic activities. Now, in a bus stand or in a marketplace, what do we observe? Your answer will be, write down in your copy. The following activities we find in a bus stand or a marketplace. Number one, production of goods and services. Production of goods and services. We see this activity taking place? Yes, production of goods and services. Number two, consumption of goods and services. Second, we see consumption of goods and services. Third, investments in business activities. Investments in business activities. Fourth could be exchange in terms of money. Exchange in terms of money. And fifth activity we could say is distribution of goods and services. Distribution of goods and services. Okay. Now we'll stop till here. Tomorrow we will continue with the remaining question and answers. So we stop till here to today. Have a nice day. Stay safe, all of you.